Well, thanks so much for your time, Brett. You're in a car, but you're not actually having to necessarily hop around from spot to spot.
No, yeah, I figured I'd just sit in this parking lot and have a chat with you.
Awesome. I just want to start right out by talking about your lead single for your LP, Gabrielle. Can you just tell me a little bit about what the song's about for you? Was it based on a real life experience?
Yes, it was based off a real life experience, and the song for me, I'm a very much a nostalgic kind of guy, looking back on relationships, and I think a lot of us in a way where you look back on a relationship and think, what could that have ended up being? Could I have spent my whole life with this person? Could we have all these stories to be telling now and all that, and was it just what it was and something special at that time, and you're grateful for having that person in your life at that time, and it didn't work out, but you still wonder what it could have been. And I think that's the whole idea of this song. And whether your name's Gabrielle or Sarah or whatever it is, it's like that's what it's really about. And I think a lot of people can attest to that, even if you're long way away from that in another relationship or married or whatever. You still are grateful and thankful, I think, for having some people in your life and really shaping your life in a better way.
Did you get nervous right when you were about to put it out, thinking, even though you probably used an alias of a name, like, oh my God, she's gonna hear this song, what's about her? It's gonna be.
I thought about that. This is the most personal kind of song. I know that person probably knows about them. I was wondering though. I was wondering what would happen, and I can't imagine hearing that as you're driving down the road or something. But I love that mystery of a song. I love that. And for me, it's just way more real if it is a real thing. So you put yourself out there a little bit, but I put myself out there a lot with this whole album, and it's so freeing when you do that. And I'm not afraid to do that anymore. I was usually afraid of vulnerability at certain points in my life, and now I'm like, man, just air it out. Just let it be what it is, and it makes you feel so much better as a person, as an artist, and it's a superpower to have.
What I've been thinking about is interesting about how Sunday Drive, the whole LP, is looking out to be. It feels like a very introspective, kind of like internal, thoughtful type album. And I can't help but notice how appropriate it is, considering, with this quarantine and the pandemic, we've all kind of had to stop. Yeah. Even though you chose to stop and kind of to write this album, now we've all had to stop, and now this album's coming out. I think that like Sunday Drive is a perfect example of that retrospective track on this album. And I love the story about how you heard it years ago. Yeah. Do you remember what drew you in then and how you realized it was going to be for this album?
The moment when I heard this, I was an intern working in a tape room, transferring CDs to MP3s, and I heard this song. And I think the reason I grabbed a hold of me is because, I'm very close to my family, and whether it be my parents, my brother, my grandparents when they were here, they're not here anymore, but like at that point they were, some of them were, and it was like you learn so much those little moments in life, and then you realize how quick they went away and how they go away, and you realize how really all you have is this moment that you have where we're sitting right here just talking, and then it's gone. And so I think it really struck me as I started to feel the years go by as I listened to the song. I started to see those little drives we were on in the little town of Paris, Illinois, and those little streets were turning on, and you felt like nothing was going on, but you were learning so much about life. And then singing in the car with your friends when you're, in high school, and never thinking that you're ever going to grow old. And then it gets to the last line, which just daggers me every time I heard it. I broke down crying singing this in the studio when I recorded it. But it talks about the inevitable concept of, your parents getting older, and you take them for a ride in the back seat on a Sunday drive. And my parents are very healthy and they're not overly old or anything at this point, but they're going to be, and I am too going to get old, and that's the reality of life. And I think when you capture that in a song and you realize you still have that right now, and you have, whoever's riding with you, whoever it is, doesn't have to be your parents or family or whoever, it could be a close friend, whatever it is. It's capturing those moments and seeing that they fly by and appreciating each one of them. But what really matters are the connections and relationships we have, and that's what we're going to tell the stories about in our final days, or how we spent it doing that, not how we spent hundreds of hours on this one project, and what I mean. And I think that was what was huge about the song.
Amen to that. So you recorded the entire album or most of the album in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Any particular inspiration behind that location, those surroundings, that area?
Yeah. So I grew up, Paris, Illinois, which is about 3.5 hours south of Chicago. But my first 2 years of college, I went in the suburbs of Chicago. So I would spend a lot of my time growing up dreaming about Chicago. That was the big city for us. All my sports teams I loved were there. All the all the music coming out of there I loved. It was just a magic place, and I just dreamt about it, and I loved it. And then I went and lived there, and I would take the train, all the time down to the city and run around there like I owned the place. I just felt, like I just felt so free there. And so I wanted to step outside the usual zone of recording an album in Nashville, and it's so easy to get wrapped. I mean, it's the best place in the world for music, but when you want to try to drastically change the music you're making and go to the next level of musicality, and go deeper, I think you got to go outside your comfort zone. And I wanted to go record in a completely different place, and so that's why I went to Chicago, and it really showed. You could tell just by hearing it where I recorded it and the mindset that I was in, and I think it made it all a crazy idea when going into it. It actually made it all make so much more sense, and it felt so right once we did it.
Could you talk more about like the lyricism on the album? Because I did notice, and I really liked it. It felt a lot more just like train of thought, like less concerned with rhyme schemes. Was it hard to maintain that, like kind of that style, harder than you think? Because I know sometimes you're probably like trying to make a rhyme, but now maybe a rhyme's just popping up and you're like, no, I don't want it to feel that way.
I think it was, and that's a really good question because I haven't really thought of it that way. Which means I didn't really purposely like try to do that exactly. I think it was really, honestly, I had never given myself space, even on my first record, giving myself space to make a record like that. And I think it really shines out, what you do naturally when you peel back everything. Like, I literally stepped away from everything and took this time and got a flip phone and did all this stuff, which, wasn't what made me write the songs. But the thing that made me write the songs was I wasn't listening to radio. I wasn't watching stuff that other people were doing, because I wanted to figure out what I needed to do. And I think when I started to do that, I started to show up different kinds of songwriting that I think I would touch on a little bit in other records and in other times, but I think it really brought out the writer that I really am. And I think that space was needed for that. And so there is definitely a different style of writing a song. You can still feel, like it's me and everything from records before, but it's definitely like a grown up. I feel like I grew up doing all this and grew up as a songwriter, as a person, as an artist. And I think that's how that kind of popped up.
Awesome. Just to wrap up the interview part, ultimately, what message are you hoping that your fans take away from listening to this album front to back?
I think I want, as I did with it, I hope it helps them and encourages them to find a little bit of themselves in this music as well. I think, that's, listening to music through the years for me, and still to this day, I find so many lessons in life through the way other people lived, through tough experiences or other things. And I think this record has some things that I've had to be learn the hard way through and everything. But I wanted to share that because, that's being that voice, I hope can help some people through things in a tough time like this. So I just want, hopefully people find some bit of themselves in this music and inspires them the way they inspire me. And that's that keeps me going on stage and recording music, even though I can't go on stage right now. I'm going to be as soon as it's safe and good. But in the meantime, we're gonna have this music to connect on, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Do you like what you just watched? If so, then download the Music Choice app right now.